Well, it's the first Monday in the month of March, and as we say in this part of the world, Happy New Month officially to you. We're live right here in Lagos. This is the Morning Brief. I'm Kayode Okikulu.
And I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. As always, thank you so much for being part of the show. And it's a brand new month, as Kayode has said. We wish you the very best, especially now that our brothers and sisters, the Muslim faithful, started the Ramadan fast. So wish you strength and pray for all of us.
Absolutely. So we're rooting for you, and of course, all the support and prayers for our nation, Nigeria. I know it's been a very interesting weekend. A lot of people have not had time to really digest what is playing out in Rivers State. But let's start on the lighter note, Jeffrey, the Oscars. I know for a lot of people, maybe this part of the world, they're like, the Oscars, what's going on? Yes, it happened when you were sleeping, most likely, because of time difference. Obviously, that's the Academy Awards for, of course, movies and the rest. And I think the standout for me, Jeffrey, is, well, one, we don't have all the categories we should have at the Oscars or any of those movies awards. And you know what that category is, Jeffrey?
I don't know. Tell me.
For politicians. I think politicians are some of the best dramatists that you find around. And I would explain, or you would see it during the course of the show, but the person I'm most happy for is Macaulay Culkin's brother. You know, Macaulay Culkin, the Home Alone actor, the child actor, who's, by the way, over 40 years old now.
Already.
Never got Golden Globe, actually, never got Academy Awards. But his brother, Kieran Culkin, went home with Best Supporting Award. Yes, the Best Supporting Actor in that movie, A Real Pain, I think. So I'm happy for him that what his brother was not able to achieve in that sense, a younger brother achieved it. So I think that is a standout for me at the awards. And the fact that we don't have
I was all played, but I couldn't catch up with the Oscars because of the politics of Nigeria.
Right.
But I was able to see a few of the
see why they should have a category in the Oscars.
So much drama, but we congratulate everyone that has won last night. And but I was actually, remember there was a movie, Kayode, where rooting for, I think it didn't make it to the Oscars, the Nigerian movie, the language movie that didn't make it to the Oscars. We hope that next time. But what stood out for me at the Oscars is whenever I see the 96, is it 96 or 97 now?
That's the award itself.
Yes. But 96, 97.
Lost count at this
so I'm just, it's tremendous. It's just beautiful and interesting and quite inspiring for me to see that an award has lasted for 90-something years. And it's still this prestigious, it's still being respected. Africa, we should learn to build things that last. That's my lesson. Whenever I see those 96th or 65th or all of that, but still staying outside the country because we have a lot to talk about within the country. Was the Oval Office back and forth between Donald Trump and Zelensky. The jury is divided as to what played out there. Of course, they said Donald Trump is a bully. He's a deal maker. America is tired of spending money. They came to discuss the minerals deal, but Zelensky wanted a strong position. The way, well, the White House, led by Donald Trump, felt disrespected by a few utterances of Zelensky. Well, Zelensky said there was nothing disrespectful. I appreciate America for all their support. So our support goes from military to finance to humanitarian services and all of that. But I think, for me, I don't know why J.D. Vance came into that conversation. I don't understand why he spoke there. But he even escalated things even further. But the other part of it is the fact that Europe is now rallying around Zelensky, what they should have done since, and it's quite important. But America must understand that it cannot survive on its own. I know that Donald Trump sees things a bit differently, you know, America first. But 21st century, being protectionist as it is, can be detrimental in the near future. Well, I'm happy there's a wake-up call with the style of leadership as everybody to put their own house in order. And I hope Europe will put their own house in order. Africa will put its own house in order. I was just thinking the other day, Kayode, what if it was an African leader that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance spoke to, like that at the Oval Office? What do you think would have happened?
Well, I'm glad that they watched what happened with Zelensky, and a lot of them say, okay, any invite from the White House, I'm not sure I want to be a part of it. I know there's a lot of back and forth, whether he spoke because of his primary language or the way he presented it in English.
It was quite composed, even with 2 against 1.
Yeah, but you know, there's some terms, there's some expressions, even the nuances, the
body language.
Yeah, the body language that is different from what you find in America, for example, particularly for that part of Europe where Ukraine and Russia are. Their own kind of language and enunciation is quite different.
Yeah.
Right, so you might misconstrue it or not. I really don't know what was playing out through the minds, but when you talk about J.D. Vance, I think it's very interesting what we're seeing. And not to get too deep into this, but people are shocked that it was J.D. Vance that spoke that way and not Donald Trump. If anything, Donald Trump seemed a bit more calmer.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people are in for a ride that they never saw coming. And that is why, Jeffrey, I've said that they should have their own category at the Oscars.
Yeah,
97th Oscars.
And I think I don't agree with the fact that that was played out on camera. If you're behind closed doors and you see where politicians talk, you know, heart to heart, it can be very crazy. It can be somehow. But there are certain things that shouldn't come on camera. These are two sovereign countries talking together. Well, I know that one of the things that maybe triggered Donald Trump and JD was the fact that you're far away, you're divided by a sea. But this guy you're dealing with, you can't trust him that way. But America maybe felt threatened or felt insulted. Anyway, that's their issue. Everybody has gotten the memo as to what is playing out at the White House. That's the ride we have to face for the next 4 years. So brace up and get ready. Kaide, what are we doing today on the program?
Well, we're starting with the drama in River State, a political drama. Nothing really cheery about that drama. But where are we now? Well, it's taken a new twist following the Supreme Court's verdict on the status of Amawule-led lawmakers, the cancellation of the local government elections, and the federal government withholding the state's allocation, at least per the court. It's a big issue, and our guests will be joining us to fully dissect it.
River's struggle is never, this is not even near close to an end. Yeah. But, well, let's see how it plays out. But besides that, we'll talk about funding Nigeria's military, especially with backward integration. The looks at the fight against terrorism and insurgency. We'll be highlighting the importance of local manufacturing of weapons. With what's playing out in the White House, I think we should just take this a bit more seriously, because they could choose not to sell us anything, and there's nothing we can do about it. So backward integration is critical. That's why we're going to be talking to the hierarchy of the military as to how far they've gone with this and what needs to be done to even scale it further.
So we're not just talking security of the nation's territory, we're talking security of your mind, if there's anything like that. One thing you can't run away from in life is stress and possible anxiety, but how do you deal with stress and anxiety, particularly in our daily lives, as well as not allowing these issues affect your productivity? We'll sit down with an expert this morning.
And we're also going to be dealing with some issues that has to do with a woman who is a storyteller. We have a lot of women today on the program. Osas will be joining us to bring a perspective on African stories right here on the program.
And finally, on this week's edition of Morning Chapters, Amina Oyagbola joins us, and she takes us through mentoring women for leadership. It's Women's Month, ladies and gentlemen, and we're starting with a bang. So how can we raise, will I say better women? And this doesn't mean the crop of women we have are not good, but the goal is to always get better and better every day. They say the beautiful ones are not yet born. So we're getting deep into issues that concern women this morning.
Absolutely. So, hey, away from that, let's get straight to what the... But before we get to the papers, by the way, let's remind you, you can be part of the conversation. We have 3 ways you can be part of it. CTV Morning Brief, that's the hashtag. Go to X and drop your post, tag us. We'll read it out right here on the program. Also, you can use the WhatsApp number and the email scrolling on your screen. Whichever is convenient for you, wherever you are around the world, those are the channels through which you can reach us. WhatsApp, X, and email.
There you go. So let's get right into the dailies. What are the dailies saying? How are they reporting some of the big stories in Nigeria today? Well, let's start with the Guardian newspaper. And the Guardian newspaper is focusing on the 2025 budget. See how the Guardian captures and captions the story. Bloated 41 trillion naira revenue target stokes fresh fiscal deficit concern. Oof. I wish I mean, I wish I could find a cheery news to start with, but don't take it too seriously. That's the point of having your representatives and all of the MDAs and the rest. There's some stresses you should not really take on your head. Internalize it, but make sure you compartmentalize it appropriately. But let's see the overview. Expenditure 54 trillion naira, deficit 13 trillion naira, revenue target 40.9. That's how we got to 41. Debt service 14.3. Exchange rate 1,500. I think we're about that right now, 1,005, 1,004 plus. And of course, crude oil production 2 million barrels per day. But how would we be able to achieve all of these things? I think that's the bone of contention, and that's why we have people in government. So that's the lead story, Jeffrey, for the Guardian newspaper this morning. And it's interesting, as you'll expect, to see IBB's book still making the rounds. There's still more reactions to it, and I suspect this will last for a few more weeks.
Yes, sir.
As people get a hold of the book from time to time. I know some people are saying, no, I'm not spending 40,000 or 50,000 on that book, but somehow the book is in their face. So eventually they'll probably say, fine, let me just go through this book. But there you have it, the front page of The Guardian.
Okay, from the front page of The Guardian, we'll get to the Nigerian News Direct. That leads with the issues around River State. Supreme Court judgment, Fubara bows to pressure. Orders outgoing LG chairman to hand over today. Agrees to hold fresh LG poll after Supreme Court verdict. Urges calm. Assures residents of continued good governance. Says state will implement court ruling once certified judgment is received. So that's going to be a major part of our talking point today. I think the very first segment will help you break it down, because the number of litigation in River State, I don't think even the litigators themselves can even track all of them, you know. So from the references made by the Supreme Court to Justice James Omotosho that had to do with the representation of the Budget Army Wule led assembly that was instituted somewhere at the end of November, to the judgment that had the order that has to do with Justice Joyce Abdul Malik, that restrains CBN and the Accountant General from releasing funds, citing Justice Omotosho and the Appeal Court judgment that upheld that as well, to the issue around Justice Peter Alifu, that faulted the whole election and the processes and all of that, guidelines and the violations. So there's a lot to help you untangle on the show. I had to relook at all of it, get to some of those courts. But the most important document I'm looking for, that I haven't gotten, I don't know what's gotten, the CTC of the judgment itself. So that we know what the enforceable order of courts are, as well as the reasoning of the Lord Justices, and also look at some of the prayers that were sought in all of that. So, all sides will be here to help you understand what's going on. But besides all of that, I think the other one that you should pay attention to is Dangote saying we absorbed 16 billion naira loss to keep fuel prices low. Should we be saying thank you, or I don't know what's, but this is a revelation that he has to let go of 16 billion naira just to keep prices. So it's self-subsidization. Is that what they call it? I don't even know what term to call it. Private company subsidizing for the public. What? But thank you, by the way. At least I bought fuel the other day for 870 naira. Ooh. That's cool. Okay.
There's a lot playing out in that sector. You see all this.
You never know.
Around.
It's like reverse politics.
You see the talk about the federal government moving to avert fuel crisis to pay 100 billion naira bridging claims soon. That's according to Ipman. And we understand that the subsidy has been removed, right, Jeffrey? So what is going on with bridging claims? But let's turn our attention.
Where is that? Okay.
It's another story making the rounds. I just linked it to it because, I mean, if Dangote is subsidizing that sense, we've heard the federal government also saying, or Ipman saying FG is meant to pay bridging claims. So
is that an old bridging claim, or?
That's the question. Where did bridging claims come in yet again? But take a look at the Blueprint newspaper. Blueprint leads with what's playing out in the Senate. And I think I don't know why these issues are still very, very much staring us in the face. You expect that, come on, the Senate The Senate. Well, you see, Akpabio-Natasha feud. Senate tackles Saraki, vows not to reward falsehood. What we have is personal, unsubstantiated claims. Deputy Whip. And it's the ACF backs probe. Akwa Ibom youth won. I don't know if this is becoming, I don't know. I'm not going to go down the seeming ethnic coloration. But the former Senate president has said that there should be an internal, what do you call it? Yeah, sexual abuse or whatever probe in the Senate. So the Senate Deputy Whip responded to him, saying that, well, they are unsubstantiated claims and the rest. So the back and forth.
At the end of the day, she didn't raise the issue of sexual whatever on the floor. The issue was marginalization, I've been treated. She didn't really say, it's a very tricky story, and it has escalated into family issues, so I'm very careful. Now Akpabio's wife is involved, Senator Akpabio's wife is involved, the Senator Odwang is now involved, and all of this. If you look at that exchange, the exchange was about all of the things that have been happening in the Senate. Oh, you've been treating me this, that, change me. And then she granted a radio interview, which I listened to. The issue of sexual whatever still did not rise. I think what escalated the issue, which is why handlers have to be careful, is why I suspect what really escalated that she now had to grant TV interview and gloves were off, was the use of language of the handler, where it said pancakes and transparent dresses, and she felt denigrated also. So she felt like, if your handler could do this without, I don't believe it's without your approval. So let's go there. And things escalated, boom, boom, boom. Well, there are certain things that can happen on the floor of the Senate. It has to be raised on the floor of the Senate. There are certain things that can happen in court. So we'll leave court to handle court, Senate to handle Senate. But what I don't understand is the people that are protesting. That is the part I do not understand.
Left, right, and center.
Excuse, why are you, Akwa Ibom youth, or what are you protesting for exactly? I don't understand.
First off, Jeffrey.
How did this escalate to
First
protest?
off, Jeffrey, they have freedom of what?
Of protest.
Now, whether the expression or protest makes sense is another thing entirely, but one thing we can't ignore is the economy of protests in Nigeria.
Yeah.
It should be added to the GDP.
I don't understand.
Because, bro...
The senator alleges, is all his allegation, as far as everybody's concerned, alleges against Senator Akpabio. Senator Akpabio's wife has now responded. Senator Natasha's wife, husband, has responded. Can they just leave it at the way they are dealing with? What is the protest about, really? I don't know. Anyway, so I think that's Nigerian politics. Because I was watching, I said, okay, what exactly are you protesting for? What can your protest do? But as Kayode said, perhaps it's the economy of protest. I think that all of those things further escalate things at the end of the day. These people know how to deal with their issues. Everything will be resolved eventually. The one that will have to be resolved in court will be resolved in court. The one that will be resolved on the floor of the Senate will be resolved on the floor of the Senate. So this street protest, I don't think it has gotten to that point yet. It's quite unfortunate.
I always say that the big names always find a way to settle.
They will settle.
The question is, will they settle while you're alive or after you fought their needless battle and maybe you've gone down for it?
You know, the funny thing is that they're even family friends.
Right.
That's why they're family, they're not just colleagues. These are family friends.
Very close.
Like, we come to your house, you come to my house, you carry my child, I carry your child, I was at your wedding, I was at the child dedication. These are family friends.
Family
so why don't we leave them to sort themselves out?
But the issues around whether or not there's been harassment and all
that's
of that.
That's a different kettle of fish.
That one should be sorted in court as well.
In court.
But let's take a look at what people are saying naturally. And again, a lot of people have been talking about, particularly the wife of a Senate president coming in on this one. She has been very quiet in all of this. That's Mrs. Onoma Akpabio. She filed a lawsuit against Senator Natasha requesting 250 billion naira.
Okay, that's
general damages.
That's higher than the other.
Higher than 100 billion naira, which Senator Natasha Akpoti is suing for. And she's also demanding an unconditional apology from Senator Akpoti Odwang to be published in 2 newspapers. Let's take a look at Duke of Africa's first comment. Says, defamation suit is civil and personal. Didn't her lawyer tell her this? Why is she suing on behalf of her husband?
Because I was also thinking about that. Does she have a local standard on this case?
Well, if she's able to prove it, that what affected her husband affected her, that's law for you.
I don't know.
To prove it.
I think the lawyer should advise. I don't know. Anasu Achara says, But defamation is personal. She was not the person allegedly defamed, so she has no standing to sue.
Well, some will say that the statement by the Senate President's aide to was not issued by the Senate President, or at least was not signed by him. So why is he also joined in the suit?
The court will determine
exactly.
That.
So it's left to the court to determine for both of the issues. Take a look at Nonso. Says lawsuits and counter lawsuits. Seems that this drama will be long. This is about the time to de-escalate this issue. The question is how, and who would de-escalate it? When is the appropriate time? It's Women's Month, by the way. So,
so women will carry on this one. I don't think it's an impossible case to resolve. Wisdom Madua says she has done well by coming out to defend her husband. Whether she knows the truth or not is another thing. However, her effort is a good damage control attempt. It's a fight of the upper class. Ours is just to catch crews. They will resort themselves last.
Well, yes, you can internalize it, as I always say, but make sure you properly compartmentalize it. You do not fight anybody's battles. And it looks like, Jeffrey, the legislator at the national and state levels have fair share of controversies surrounding them. So we've talked about the Senate. Let's talk about Lagos State Assembly. Week after week of drama. But the latest is that the Lagos State House of Assembly has asked all staff and legislative aides to work remotely until further notice due to the ongoing leadership crisis. So which house directed this? Well, this is in
which leadership?
With leadership, because there's still two people laying claims, sadly. So it's the Miranda leadership. They're saying that they should work from home. Well, wisdom, let's hope wisdom brings some wisdom to this one. Says epic movie in LSHA, that's the Lagos State House of Assembly. It seems another interesting scene is about to unfold this new week. We are watching.
Okay, Wycliffe says Lagos State APC should not have internal political crisis. A house divided against itself cannot stand.
Okay. DJ is next, says remote work for Lagos Assembly staff amid a leadership crisis shows how internal chaos can disrupt even the basics of governance. And that's the question we asked last week about the quality of representation. And some people say, yeah, no, this does not affect governance. It's just a one-off. But come on, this is at the heart of governance itself. And this user says, wonder how long until further notice will stretch and what it will take to resolve this mess.
All right, Farouk Olaifa says, chaos in leadership is just a loud call for clarity. Remote work won't fix it. United voice is what we need.
And this remote work will ensure that the workers are safe.
This is quite deeper for the assembly to direct for people to work remotely. That means, are they going to be sitting remotely as well?
Well, it's just the legislative aides and staff. I imagine they would also... let's wait to find out. It's going to be an interesting week, because thinking about it...
How did we get here? Things just went boom, 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 boom.
Escalated.
The Senate, Senator Akpabio versus Senator Natasha, boom, boom, boom. Now people are protesting, which I don't understand.
I would imagine if
then now this is Lagos State House of Assembly.
Yeah.
I don't know. And the Rivers has always been there since 2023.
Are you sure? 2020. Some will say it dates back even decades ago. So
at least on
there's
this
always
one.
A new series or season.
No, on this particular, this new episode.
Right.
This is a new season.
Right.
Okay, season 2023 started in 2023. So we can date back and all of that.
And speaking of Rivers, let's just take a few comments on Governor Fubara agreeing to conduct fresh LG poll after Supreme Court verdict. So, Jeffrey, a lot of people are not sure what to make of this, right? Is this going to de-escalate the issue, or this is another twist that will escalate the issues?
One of the things I found interesting was the language of the governor, which you should be commended for, agreeing to implement what the Supreme Court has said. But he said it doesn't agree with the Supreme Court, but as a law-abiding government, it will. That is how to talk in a democracy. As far as that Supreme Court is concerned, there's nothing you can do about it. So I don't know how it's going to play out. So normally, because he's saying that because the Supreme Court has ruled about caretaker committee, there's no point having caretaker. So you're just like the head of service, kind of, in the local government level, will take charge. Because the other gentlemen are laying claim that Dami Willie Group had extended their tenure, but that's an aberration right now, arguably by some lawyers, that there's no extension of any tenure. The Supreme Court has ruled on that. They are saying no. Whatever the Army Group had said stands because they have now been recognized by the Supreme Court. So they're also laying claim that they can continue. And then I heard another one that I saw a story sent to me that another group that was removed, I think allegedly by Nyesom Wike when he became governor, are also saying that the court has also ruled in their favor that their tenure was abruptly. Anyway, it's an interesting scenario. We'll help you break it down on the program today, right here on the Morning Brief.
So there you have it. If you've got comments, you can send them to our email, the morningbrief@channelstv.com, or just tag us as well as on WhatsApp, whichever works for you. Let us get your thoughts to the world. But we'll take a moment now, and when we return, we're starting off with the all-important conversation around Nigeria's military. How much do we manufacture arms and ammunition locally, and how well is that spreading, or at least being fed to our military to secure our nation? We have a big conversation with DICON. You wonder what DICON is? That's the moment, so stay with us. But just before we get into what's playing out in Rivers State, let's talk about security in Nigeria, strengthening Nigeria's defense. And we have joining us this morning the Director General of the Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria, DICON, Major General Nnedi Edet, is live with us from our Abuja studio. Good morning, General. You're welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Coyote.
Well, General Edet, a lot of people are probably hearing DICON, maybe the younger ones, hearing about DICON for the very first time. And they're thinking, oh, wait a minute, Nigeria is able to produce arms locally. But I understand there's been a game changer with the amendment of the DICON Act. So, General, I'd like you to speak to us about what was obtainable before and what the future looks like now for DICON in terms of production of arms, ammunition locally, to feed not just Nigeria's defense forces, but Africa as well.
Okay, thank you, Coyote, and just saying you and Jeffrey are doing a very great work. Thank you for inviting me for this very important program here on the Channels TV to discuss a very important topic bordering on Nigeria's future, the issue of military self-sufficiency and the role of local manufacturing involving DICON and other manufacturers in Nigeria. Indeed, perhaps let me just start by saying that DICON itself means Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria. Now, our founding fathers in Nigeria recognized that our independence in 1960 would not have bear too much meaning without our self-sufficiency in military and defense systems. And that's why way back in 1964, they thought about and established DICON through an act of parliament with the mandate of meeting the defense material needs of Nigerian Armed Forces and other security agencies. Ever since we in DICON have been committed to the realization of that mandate through our new vision, which is to be a leading force in defense manufacturing, not just in Nigeria, but the entire African region, leveraging on technology, reliability, and strategic partnership. So this is just a bit about what DICON and the vision of DICON is about. And then you're asking about particularly local manufacturing of arms and ammunition. And so I would say that right from inception, DICON has been involved in manufacturing of arms and ammunition, and indeed other defense systems used by our military and armed forces. We had a an unfortunate civil war between 1967 and 1970. And given that DICON was established in 1964, it was already baptized to produce to support that war effort. And indeed, records have shown that DICON acquitted itself very well by manufacturing and contributing to that war efforts. Ever since DICON has been producing, maybe not in sufficient quantity that the country needs. That's why perhaps I think this topic is important for us to talk about that self-sufficiency and what it means for our national security and national development.
General, let's talk about, I understand DICON, I think it's 64, that should be about 60 years, if I'm correct. So it's been a long time coming. So let's find out from you, General, what is it that we're able to produce as we speak? Before we now get to some of the challenges that that particular sector in the military is facing, because it's quite exciting to see that this is there. So some Nigerians don't even know it is there. And so now they know that there is that manufacturing arm for backward integration of our weapon, because what makes a nation great, besides economy, is how wealthy the nation is, the strength of its military at the end of the day. So what can be produced in Nigeria? What can't be produced? And what can we do to upscale it?
Okay, thank you very much. Again, let me start by appreciating the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Mr. President, who barely 6 months in our assumption of office signed the new DICON Act into law. Specifically, that was on the 23rd of November, 2023. I'm sure we are going to be speaking about the DICON Act more in detail in the course of the program. But the DICON Act has indeed opened up what we've been doing before and what we can actually do much more. And so right from beginning, DICON has been involved in producing different calibers of defense systems in terms of small arms, in terms of when I talk about small arms, the pistols, the rifles that are commonly used by armed forces and other security agencies, DICON have been involved in producing for, small arms ammunition too, that have been used severally by our armed forces and other security agencies. I don't want to go to specifics of the calibers here. DICON have produced all forms of military items, and not just military items. DICON has also been involved in producing other civilian items to support agricultural endeavors. And a lot of us in Nigeria will recall that salt that was out there in the market back then, the DICON salt. And even DICON also ventured at some point into making furnitures. And so there's a range of products that's been coming out of DICON in the past and even currently. So for today, we are still involved in the production of ammunition. We are still involved in production of arms. We're actually diversifying to, bring in and integrate other military systems in line with the changing nature of today's warfare. So indeed, we have a range of products that are coming out of DICON. But the issue here is, are they sufficient to meet our nation's military needs? The answer right away is no.
And I'd like you to be more specific, General, so Nigerians can understand where we're at and where we hope to be. And it's cheery to hear that, things are moving. I understand there's been some sort of agreement with private company. Perhaps you can speak to that. But in terms of percentage, General, what percentage of Nigerians' military forces are using arms or ammunitions by DICON? And I'm talking, is it 10%, 5%, or 2%, or even more?
All right, thank you, Kaide. I would say yes, DICON is producing currently. Not producing alone, we are producing, in line with the concept of military-industrial complex, we are producing alongside other defense-related industries. We're having an association called the Defense Industry Association of Nigeria that was established by Section 27 of the DICON Act. And so we have there a lot of local industries. We have Proforce, we have Imperium, we have Smart Systems Feet, we have a number and a range of a lot of defense-related industries. The last, over 60 of them, even though we think that can grow more. Comparatively, I've been taking a serious look at the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria, And I realized that they boast of almost 2,000 manufacturers. We're envisaging and hoping that going forward, a great number of manufacturers in Nigeria will be sensitized to direct their military, their production efforts to supporting the military-industrial complex. But that said, currently, I would say for sure we're not producing enough to support our systems. And this can be reflected probably by how much of military systems we are still importing. As a DG DICON, I can say I've not been able to supply even up to maybe 10% of the military ammunition that I'm currently producing. That is just the category of what I'm producing due to so many factors I'm sure we'll be discussing in the course of this program. But the point here is that the gap between what we should produce, the gap between our self-sufficiency and our needs is really huge. And I think it calls for a national discourse.
General, let's get right into it without taking too much of time. So if less than 10%, and I don't know if it's up to even 5%, is able to be supplied to our armed forces, then what are those factors? What are those things we need to clear out of the way? Because what we're seeing now is nations are going protectionists, us first before others. So they'll probably want to sort themselves before they think of selling to others. And there's pockets of wars across the world. So there's a lot of demand, right? I'm not sure Nigeria is on the top 10 list of countries that others want to sell arms to. So we need to take care of ourselves by ourselves. So what are those major factors? And you can tie that maybe to the DICON Act, General.
Okay. Talking about the DICON Act, yes, like I said, Mr. President signed the DICON Act on the 23rd of November, 2023. And that DICON Act has a very reforming prospects for Nigeria's military-industrial complex. It kind of reconsidered the DICON board, made it more robust in Section 4. Section 10 is extremely important because it granted and kind of gave exclusive rights for production of arms and ammunition to DICON. That has always been there. Now, what is the issue about this? The Section 10, because assuming that there's an appetite to buy from outside, that now comes with a lot of other impediments. Now, if you go outside to buy, with just like you alluded, a lot of wars and conflicts across, we are having a lot of situations where you're not buying the right quantity, you might not get the right quality, time is passing, and so we might not be able to render to our forces as often and as quickly as they want it. And there's also a question of foreign policy. How are you sure the country you are going out is disposed to selling for you? And the Chief of Defense Staff, in several interviews in the past, has alluded to this complexity. So the imperative is for us to develop our capacity to produce inwards. And so that was why that exclusive clause was put in there, hoping that efforts will be directed towards encouraging not just DICON, but other defense-related industries to produce inwards. Currently, there's a lot of effort and momentum towards that, but we're still far from it. I know that we launched last year during the DICON at 60. We made a lot of effort to sensitize the country generally about what DICON was in the past, what DICON is now, and where we want to be in the future. And so we, during that event, a 5-year strategy was launched where we thought by Mr. President, who was represented by the Secretary to the Government or the Federation at that event. And then we hope that this 5-year strategy that was launched was going to lay the groundwork for the country to strategically begin to look at how to empower DICON and Nigeria's military-industrial complex towards enhancing their self-sufficiency. But for now, it's still work in progress. We have a summit coming up in April, May, to just assess the first aspect of the implementation of this strategy. How far have we gone? We just need to, start walking the talk as soon as possible. And we want to appreciate Mr. President. We want to appreciate the Chief of Defense Staff, who has been very passionate in pushing me, and in fact, the service chiefs who encourage, they've been in the forefront of encouraging indigenous production recently.
So, General, let's say in the next 5 years, I'm asking generally now, what can be done to scale? I'm very particular about scaling because, as my colleague Kari has said, protectionism appears to be the new language of states across the world. They can close their door whenever they want, and there's nothing we can do about it. They can open their doors, well, it will be a welcome development. But we'll just leave us assuming that they are not there. What can be done in the next 5 years in terms of resources, financial and material resources, to be able to scale to beyond at least 10 to 15% of our local manufacturing needs as far as our weaponry is concerned?
All right, thank you. So the first thing is to accept the truth. And the truth is that it's going to be difficult to have anybody out there spend a lot of money on their research and development and then hand over those technology to you so willingly. Again, they see us in Nigeria as a military market. And so if they are producing, the top 10 producers and exporters of arms and ammunition may not even be at war at the moment, statistically. So what are they producing for to sell to us? So we are mindful of this, and we understand that technology transfer has to be put in the context of us working backwards, backward integration and reverse technology. So mindful of that, we are choosing our partners strategically. Now, what can be done in the next 5 years? Like I said, this strategy was launched last year, trying to lay the pathway for where we should be, at least in the next 5 years. So the first part of that strategy had to do with innovation, ramping up innovation and technology within DICON and the military-industrial complex. We are revisiting our production lines. I must say a number of them have gone obsolete. We're just resilient in DICON. We don't want to just sit down and say, look, we are having old systems, we're not producing. So it's like using the old hoe and tool to go back to the farm. So we are using, we can see the production lines. Those technologies are not being used again. And so what that does is that we are attempting to produce, but we're not producing as much as we want to do and give it as fast as it is. So one of the strategies is for us to get new lines. And of course, this involves funding. We have, under the guidance of the Minister of Defense and the strategic guidance of the Honorable Minister of State for Defense, Dr. Bello Matawalle, we have carefully selected our strategic partners. We're at the point where we're going to sign contracts and get this partnership funded for us to have new lines. We are also, part of our strategy is also to build manpower, the gap. There is a big manpower gap in technology, not just in DICON or military industrial complex. Anybody that is trying to establish a new industry in Nigeria will do that. The first thing you need to resolve, you go around, how do I equip them? How do you not just attract the skills and technology, how do you retain skills and technology? So we're doing so many things at the same time, and we're doing them rapidly so in line with this strategy to make sure we're where we want to be. So manpower development is key to this strategy, and then strategic partnership is also key to this strategy. So I say that there are a lot of things we know. We have a robust resource of engineers, technicians in Nigeria, but we need to learn from people that have been in the forefront of this technology. We need to learn from the people that have been selling to us, but not just everybody, the right set of people to make sure that we can, with time, retain this technology. So all these are encompassed and bunched up in this 5-year strategy. We're just in the phase of that strategy, which in the next first 2 years, between January 2025, we hope to revisit and say maybe by mid-year 2026, want to reassess and see where we'll be. But there's a long way for us to go in terms of this.
All right, General, I want to get clarity on this issue. So there's this company, and I think I mentioned earlier, DICON Gray Insignia, and it's set to be a Nigerian-owned defense contracting company with a joint venture with DICON. And I can see here that the company is able to produce pistols, submachine guns, battle rifles, sniper rifles. Is that also accommodated in your current production capacity? Perhaps you might want to speak to that production capacity. But really, what is the deal here? How does it work? And when you ask for maybe capacity from other manufacturers, are you saying that you're open to also working with other manufacturers? And what will that look like, really?
Okay, thank you, Kayode. So Gray Insignia specifically is a Nigerian-owned company. They've been building capacity in manufacturing of arms and small arms. As a matter of fact, they have very encouraging and very, very encouraging technology in arms production, small arms production. Recently, that company, in partnership with DICON, Ministry of Interior, were involved in an exhibition in the United States where they took a stand and were showcasing our country's capability in terms of small arms production. But the question here is buy-in. The question here is the local support. The question here is patronage. And so companies like Gray Insignia, there are so many of them that I mentioned, over 60 of them that are defense-related industries in Nigeria, need to be encouraged. They need to be patronized. They keep asking for, guarantees in terms of, quantities that, kind of specific quantities that they should guarantee their production. So these are the discourse and things that we are doing currently. Now, what we are doing in DICON, we are currently, by the act of establishment, we are currently producing. But DICON is also transforming to take up the important role of regulating production and defense acquisition in the military-industrial complex, as provided by the DICON Act. So in terms of regulation, this is a very important aspect, and this resonates directly to the question you're asking, Kayode. Because the space, the military-industrial complex, where you have players like Gray Insignia dealing in arms and ammunition, arms for now, and other companies like Proforce dealing in mine-resistant ambush patrol vehicles, and then you have companies like SmartFit dealing in personal protective equipment, and so many of them. We need to regulate such a space to ensure that not only standards, but the wrong don't get to the wrong, the right equipment don't get to the wrong hands. Right. And so that's why we're currently working to regulate. We just established a DICON regulatory office here in Abuja. And then very soon, under the strategic direction of the Chief of Defense Staff and the Honorable Minister of State for Defense, we are going to bring out the new defense, defense licensing regulation. Which very soon that is going to come out. And I'm sure that is going to be launched in the summit we're envisaging for April and May. Now, what that regulation will do is to license, because for now we just have pieces of memorandum of understanding between companies like Gray Insignia you mentioned, and many of them, but want to move into what will be regarded as best practices, and be able to, license people that are into defense procurement and production, because it's a highly regulated space. And so that is going on already. So Gray Insignia is just one out there, but there are so many of them that I can speak to. They are doing so many great things, but they need that off-taking guarantees. They need those encouragements. They need that patronage in one way or the other for us to be able to have a viable military-industrial complex, Kayode.
General, we have to thank you for your time. A few takeaways here. It's not really cheery to hear that we're still doing less than 10% of locally made arms and ammunition. Again, it depends on what the firepower of the enemy is, but I imagine we can do better. And that talks about budgeting. What is the preference when we are budgeting for these things? Are we going for made outside of the country over made in Nigeria? And I really hope we're also thinking of the future. So beyond just arms and ammunition, I hope we're producing drones, and the rest. But Major General Aniedi Edet, we have to thank you so much for at least giving us an insight in the workings of DICON. We're going to have you very soon again to explore some more areas. We've been speaking with the Director General, Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria, DICON, Major General Aniedi Edet. Thank you for your time, General.
Thank you so much, Kayode. Thank you for having me. Thank you for this opportunity. I just want to encourage us to patronize our local products. Thank you and God bless.
Well, there you have it. So this cuts across patronized Made in Nigeria. But we're going to Made in Rivers politics right after this break. You don't want to miss it. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Let's talk about Rivers politics. It's been a journey since 2023 presidential governorship elections, and this escalated undercurrents to what it is right now. There were all kinds of things that happened to where we are, from, division in the House of Assembly to defection, and whether it wasn't defection, to issue a presentation of the budget. The number of litigation that has to do with Rivers politics, I don't even know whether the litigants can even remember all of it, but that's the challenge with the political scenario in that state. But the Supreme Court has made some pronouncement that is bringing a bit of clarity as to going forward, one of which is the Supreme Court has said it recognizes that the governor should represent the budget to the Amewule House of Assembly, River State House of Assembly. He has to do that. And also, the Supreme Court has also nullified the election that held on October the 30th. And the governor has now responded to say, I'm going to obey all of this. As for instance, he said, when it comes to the local government councils, well, the one that are substantive, you'll be nullified, so head of council should take charge. But he's going to study the judgment today and revert as to other forms of implementation. That's why we have this gentleman joining us to make sense of the situation. Mr. Chibike Ikenga is an APC chieftain. He joins us via Zoom. Mr. Ikenga, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me. I'm the APC Publicity Secretary in Rivers State, please.
All right, Mr. Ikenga, let's get straight to the conversation. I wonder what you mean. Okay, we also have joining us from our Abuja studios, Ambassador God knows Igali is the national chairman of PANDEF. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program as well.
Thank you very much.
All right, let me start with you, Mr. Ikenga, who is right there in Rivers State. First, maybe you tell us the mood of the city this morning, as well as what you make of the governor's response to the Supreme Court decision and judgment.
Okay, thank you for having me once again. Thank you, viewers. The state is calm. This had long been expected. You know, as a party, we did ask that rule of law must be respected and that rule of the law guarantees stability, peace, and development. And you are aware, I don't want to bore you and viewers with some of the challenges we had as a result of some of the overreaching decisions taken by the executive arm of the government in the state in trying to stop another arm of government, particularly the Rivers State House of Assembly under Martins Amewule. All that now have been put behind us as the Supreme Court had rightly intervened, as it is expected constitutionally, to ensure that it interprets sections of the Constitution where disagreements occur. So the state is happy, the citizens are calm, everybody is happy. Now we believe that the development of the state will be put forward. And then we are happy to hear, as a party, that the governor, when he made statement yesterday, was going to implement without reservations the decisions of the Supreme Court. That is expected, and that will help us continue our development drive in the state.
Okay, so let me bring it to you, Mr. Gale. Maybe similar question, but I know that there are other decisions as well. The issue that has to defection itself has not been ruled on by the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court has made statement as to other issues as well. But what would be your initial reaction to the governor's response to this particular issue?
Thank you very much.
Mr. Gali, that's for you.
From the point of view of the Pan-Niger Delta Forum, we being the apex socio-political body in the South-South, is for us to call for calm, and that's the same thing that the governor has done, to join him to call for calm, particularly among our young people. Many people were surprised at the judgment, but then the Supreme Court has exercised its constitutional responsibilities, and us as a neutral arbiter is to call all parties to exercise, be calm, observe the laws, and let's see the way forward that there can be amicable settlement of these issues. And you've not asked me, but let me mention that PANDEF has been on the issue of peace outside the court process, and when the opportunity comes, I'll elaborate further on that.
Court ruling, particularly on River State FARC allocation. I'd like you to speak further on that. What are you looking out to get well, the governor has since spoken. So are you still seeking that review? And that's for you, Mr. Ominini, this one. Please go ahead, Mr. Obi.
That's we practice, and that is the what we see in our country. There's a lot of dependence on federal allocations to run the whole process of governance, particularly social services. And we know that it's not that it's the first time it has happened in the history of judicial pronouncements in Nigeria, but we know that the Supreme Court has always been very careful. It is in extreme cases that issues of withholding of allocations have been ruled upon. And that is because it has a lot of implication as it affects the livelihood of the ordinary citizens. It could create a situation where the particular subnational entity is not able to perform its duties and could create social upheaval. Health sector, hospitals need all forms of medication. Even newborn babies need to be taken care of. The old, the vulnerable need to be cared for. Our schools, public sanitation and services. So anything that withholds financial resources that goes to states is a very serious matter. And we felt worried, and there were a lot of calls and a lot of requests on that. Hence our appeal to the Supreme Court that when the opportunity creates itself to look at this matter again, and let it be made clear that it's not, there's nothing that is cast in stone. If we look at the history of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, there have been cases where the court has had to look back again, regurgitate on some of its decisions, particularly where the overall social impact is pervasive and it is punitive. So we hold on to that because Rivers State is a very important state. Being in the heart, we consider the capital of the South-South, and it is out of the oil belt, which contributes significantly to the national income. Therefore, anything that to create social upheaval in Rivers State is of concern. And that was the gravamen, that was the basis of our appeal for some reversal and consideration of the matter.
All right, thank you, Ambassador Gali. Let me go to Mr. Ikenga now. I wonder if you're with him on that point, particularly for the people of the state, because at the end of the day, the people may feel the brunt the most, right? And that's on the one hand. Would you seek a review in that sense? Do you see that affecting the lot of the governed in Rivers State? And on the other side, is some of the pronouncements that the Supreme Court made, particularly with the demolition of a Rivers State House of Assembly complex by the governor in the court's ruling, saying it's an act of indiscipline bordering on the excessive use of executive might to frustrate the sitting of the assembly led by Amewule. I wonder if your party now is happy that at least the 27 members whom we saw, at least in that video, declaring that they're in your party now. Is your party excited that they're going to get some sort of redress in this one?
Okay, thank you. With utmost respect to Ambassador Igali, I want to completely disagree with him when he said it was they were contemplating, or rather they were appealing to the Supreme Court to resign their position or take another move. That's not correct. Supreme Court gave a condition, and the condition precedent is what I expected Ambassador Igali to speak about. Supreme Court did say that allocations are withheld pending when the governor submits the budget to the Rivers State House of Assembly as led by Right Honorable Martin Amewule. He carefully dodged that because that's a contentious issue. The issue is that once the budget is presented to the properly constituted and legally recognized House of Assembly under Martin Amewule, then the issue of revenue allocation, that a seizure, will be a thing of the past. So I advise him to speak with the governor and his team to ensure that the proper things are done. So we move from here. You would recall that we had challenges about impunity, about the rascality, about the lack of due processes, about disrespect for court rulings, disrespect for court orders, and even judgments. So I expected that Ambassador Igane, a respected Niger Delta leader, should speak to those issues. You know, issues about demolition of the House of Assembly to stop the arm of government from performing. He did not speak to those issues. So let those issues, particularly the presentation of the budget, be addressed. And once it is addressed, it is uhuru for Rivers people. These issues, particularly the seizure of this our allocation, was very avoidable. If the governor and his team had listened to all that we said about it, that he was treading on a path that was going to create crisis for Rivers people. And here we are. Supreme Court had validated all the facts that we presented to the public, that Martin Amewule, Right Honorable, is the Speaker of the House of Assembly. And two, that the governor was overreaching in his decisions, working against his own oath of office and oath of allegiance. These are the issues. And to speak to defection, we had said publicly, severally, the fact that the members of Rivers State House of Assembly under Right Honorable Martin Amewule indicated interest in the pursuit of the policies and programs of the Tinubu-led administration of APC, the Renewed Hope agenda, that they are happy with the way things are happening. And even if they indicated interest in joining our party, assuming without considering they did so, there are procedures for joining a party. They have not consummated any of them, and they are not members of our party as at today. So if tomorrow they intend to join our party, that's a different kettle of fish altogether. As we speak, they are not registered in our party in any of the wards. Their names are not in our register. Neither have we issued them the membership card of the party. So they're not members of our party. And we did congresses in the last 2 months. They did not participate. PDP did their own congresses. You saw them very visible in participating in their own congresses. So as a party, we are not aware that they are members of our party, as they are not registered members of this party. So generally, we believe that when the proper things are done, Rivers people will be happier. They'll be happier because they have been denied good governance because of this instability, this crisis. They have been denied all the gains they would have made in terms of development. And with this intervention of the Supreme Court, we believe, like the governor just said yesterday, we're happy with that. I was going to implement it in total. The governor did not say that he was asking for a review of the position, so I'll be surprised to hear that from Ambassador Igane. More so, a respected Ambassador Igane is not from Rivers State. He's from Bayelsa State. So we are the people who are here in Rivers State, and we respect him as a leader. But he cannot begin to say that he's asking the Supreme Court to do so. The governor has not said so. He should ask the governor to do the needful.
All right, Mr. Ekenga, I'm going to stay with you for a moment. Then we'll go to Ambassador Gali to respond to all of that, the things you said, responding to his own comments. Well, there's a question I want to build up to, but we know, not just you, Mr. Tony Okocha has also said that these gentlemen are not members of your party. We'll leave that to the determination of the Supreme Court. Because people always pull out that video of Amewule, Right Honorable, reading Dumle Mao's saying that he's going to leave the party on the premise of the division in the PDP because of Samayanwu's position, and I think he read other letters as well. But whether he consummated that process is another kettle of fish, as you've said. But let's talk about what concerns APC directly in this whole matter. This has to do with the decision of Justice Peter Lifu, which was overturned at the Court of Appeal and now upheld by the Supreme Court. Now that the governor has said, look, local government chairman, your time is up. Head of local councils, you take charge until local government elections are organized. Is the APC now going to take part in the elections that will be coming up whenever it comes up? And why?
Okay, thank you. I think APC went to court challenging the purported local government elections. Believe at that time that the local government elections that was put in place by Rivers State Independent Commission did not comply with the Electoral Act and the Rivers State local government laws. So this being the issue, we went to court and challenged it, and we got judgment. So they went to Court of Appeal, and it was set aside, and the Supreme Court had validated it, that our position ab initio had been right. So that being the case, we will participate in any legally organized local government elections in Rivers State. Once the due processes of local government elections are followed, APC will participate properly and we will win the elections because we have the people, because we are more organized, because PDP is in tatters, because PDP has challenges. That is the reason why PDP could not even participate in the elections, because they had challenges and their challenges are still up to date. So we will win the elections once it is properly organized.
I was asking about participation because I know that even the APC is a divided house. There's a Court of Appeal, I think, is it Court of Appeal or Supreme Court? I can't remember where it is, as to the status of Okocha versus that of Mika Bike. But let's get back to Ambassador Gali. Ambassador Gali, Mr. Kenga has made some statement disagreeing with your position. I'm wondering if you have a response to that effect. And what would you expect the governor to do as far as this issue is concerned?
Before I respond to your question, Mr. Kenga, let me say this. I'm not here. You mentioned that I'm from Bayelsa. Yes, I am from Bayelsa, but I'm also the leader of the Pan-Niger Delta Forum, which is the apex body of the people of the Niger Delta. And one of our main concerns is peace and stability in the region, like similar bodies such as Arewas or President Igbo or Alfenefere. And in that, under that platform, we've been working on the issue of peace. We are dispassionate. We have totally, we don't take side on this matter. Our interest is to see that peace returns to Rivers State. So the issue of you raising maybe a red flag from Bayelsa is a little bit surprising. Let me say also that when we started the peace process, there were very sharp views from people like you, political actors, very active in this matter with respect to anybody in, trying to take part or mediating in bringing peace. Issues come up all over Nigeria, and elder statesmen or organizations like these come in to mediate, to arbitrate, and to make peace. We have a committee of mediation, committee of what we call peace and reconciliation in the Niger Delta, led by 7 very senior people, made up of 7 senior people, led by Obong Victor Atta, the former governor of state. And the rest there are 3 former governors and some very ranking politicians. And Mr. Kenga, maybe to your knowledge, let me mention, they've achieved a lot of milestones. We've met with all the 2 sides and meetings are going on. We are hoping that by the end of the day, despite the judicial processes, we'll have an amicable solution that will please everybody. We all grew up in Port Harcourt, and Rivers State is very critical. We are the same people. We will always meet after the judgments of courts and all the court processes. And that's why PANDEF, as the leading body, is making this effort. So please don't feel uncomfortable. The other members include a former governor from Cross River State, a former governor from Bayelsa State, and from Edo State, from Cross River State, and so on. So this is the object of what we are doing. And what I said specifically was the fact that PANDEF was concerned because as a body of this nature, we received a lot of copious information. And we are happy that the governor said he will carry out every decision of the court, which is quite welcoming. And we joined other voices to sue for peace. And we add our voices to call all sides to take it easy. For example, people like you, I think you should mellow down on some of your public utterances from groups like you, because by the end of the day, it should be a win-win for Rivers people. And I appeal to not only you, but to other people who are politically very active in this process from both.
Oh, there. Maybe a bit of network glitch there. But we're totally out of time, coincidentally. But we must thank you both gentlemen for coming on the program. We are looking at what is going to play out today with the responses, as far as the governor has said, He said he's going to implement this. So eyes are also on the local government council as to what is playing out. But the idea is that everybody should sue for peace, whichever side you belong to. So let's thank you both, Ambassador Godknows Igali, National Chairman of PANDEF, and former Special Advisor to former President Olusegun Obasanjo and former President Umaru Yar'Adua. Also, an APC chieftain, Chibike Ikenga, joining us via Zoom from Port Harcourt. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the program. We appreciate it. And let River State enjoy peace.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it. So on this, we'll move away from going to Kayode Made in Rivers politics to other parts of the conversation. This time it's going to be a lot of talking with women, both in business, who are writers, who are creatives. It's going to be fun. It's a Women's Month. So let's have the best of it. Join us in just a minute.
You know, dealing with all of these issues can be quite stressful. So you have your daily job, you have your family, and then you add the issues across maybe your local governments, your state issues, and national issues. Then you hear about global issues again, and you're thinking, what is going on? This is quite stressful. So today we want to help you distress, right? So we're not just talking about the issues, we're also helping you to properly internalize and compartmentalize these issues. For your good, right? Yes, you're welcome. We're joined on the program this morning by the ED Institute of Counseling in Nigeria, Dr. Tolulope Okoye-Gaire, and we want to talk about your health, managing stress and anxiety daily. Dr. Okoye-Gaire, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
I just want to ask you, as a Nigerian, dealing with all of these issues, are you stressed?
So I do not think you can be a Nigerian. So the fact that you are African is stressful. The fact that you are a Nigerian is another layer of stress. The fact that you are living in Lagos is stressful. And I like to say the fact that you are a man or the fact that you're a woman
It's
another level of stress. So yeah, there's no way you are not going to be stressed. So it's not about being stressed. It is how you are managing the stress. So yeah, sometimes I get stressed, but I'm good at managing it. I've mastered the skills.
Fantastic, and that's what we want to talk about today. I want to establish that everybody experiences stress. Even you as an expert, right? So let's talk about managing it. I know they say there's good stress, eustress, or something like that. But then I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, no, I've never experienced good stress. So what is the ABC, if it's anything like that, of managing all of these stressors now?
Okay, so stress is part of life. You cannot even escape it. And that is where some people are getting it wrong. You are looking for a situation where everything will just be perfect. You're going to wake up, it's going to be a bright, good day. Nothing is going to stress you. And then you go out, you come back. As in, even trophy wives, they are stressed. So there's never going to be a time where your life is going to be perfect and nothing is going to just jump up from somewhere to stress you. It's not going to happen. So people should remove that unrealistic expectation. Whether you are living in America or you are living in Canada, wherever. I understand that it's more stressful here, but stress is part of life. If you don't want to be stressed, then just go to rest permanently. That's it. Stress is part of life.
Which we do not advise.
So people need, which I do not advise. So people need to realize that, you know, that mindset of, oh, I'm so stressed, what is going on with me? You need to drop it and realize that stress is part of life. So you now move to, now this thing, I cannot avoid it. So how do I manage it? What you need to do, and the first thing I would say is, just recognize your stressors. You need to be self-aware. That's the first point. And find out what exactly is stressing me. I'm stressed. What is stressing you? Is it financial stress? Is it your place of work? Is it existential crisis? You are asking yourself, who am I? What am I doing? I'm supposed to be this. Or societal expectation, which is a crazy situation in this part of the world. You want to buy the best car. Why do you even want to buy the car? Why do you want to build a house? You're not even building it for yourself. You are building it because you want to prove a point, and you are stressed out because of that. So you need to be self-aware and then find out, who are you? And what are these things that are stressing you? Are they even necessary? So be self-aware. Locate your stressors. When you now locate your stressors, devise a means around that stressor. How, if it is finances, where is this coming from? What do I need to do? What are the things I need to drop? What are the things I can help for now? What are the things I cannot help? If it is your job, as long as you are waking up and you are showing up, going to that office, you need to find a way to find peace around that place. Right. While you are trying to maybe prepare for your escape. So find solution around that stressor that you have identified. And then I will just say finally, work on your mind, because it is not the stressor per se that is the problem. It is the way you are thinking about it.
Okay, so let's dig deep into this self-imposed stress that you highlighted in passing, especially with what's going on on the social media. Recently, I think this weekend, we had a lot of one car promised and one car did not get promised. Eventually bought the car by yourself and all of that. So a lot of young people watch this space and they feel pressured. I even saw, when I hear people say, follow me, a 22-year-old, this, doing this and this. I feel, when you hear such statement, where I sit, I feel like somebody's trying to prove a point that I'm young and successful. And that puts pressure on other young people who may not be disposed to that level of success. How should the young people listen to all of these bombardments on social media, internalize, manage, and distress?
You know, I saw a research recently that is saying that Gen Zs are in big trouble when it comes to productivity and self-awareness. You know, because they are the ones that were really in the midst of the social media, you know, bombardments, and it's crazy. So it's deep, and I'm looking at different ways of, you know, addressing this. If you are a young person, it boils down to what I said earlier. You see, it's even more crazy in our society, because we're in a society where you grew up in a home where you are not validated enough, where people feel like if I praise her too much or if I praise him too much, he's not going to be as good as I want him to be. So you are seeking for validation per minute, per second from your childhood trauma already. And then you jump into a social media space that is not being managed, that is not being controlled. And you also do not even know yourself. You are not self-aware enough. So you are faced with all of these troubles, and then you are asking yourself, what do I do about this? And the solution to this will be to, you know, like I said earlier, find yourself. And then number two, we need a kind of holistic approach to our thought pattern as a society. It's deep, right? We need to move for a society where people, if you are walking into an office, people are looking at the shoe you are wearing, the car you are driving. That is what is going to determine whether everywhere you go, you are going for Christmas, you want to go and show off your, like, we're in a society where people will kill their parents for money, not necessarily because they need it, but because of the, you know, mental issues, the trauma that they have gone through while they were young, and the way we glorify material things. So if you find yourself in this space, you really just need to find yourself. You need to be self-aware enough to be able to make choices that are useful for you and not being driven by what you are saying. It's difficult. I don't even think people will get to that point without therapy.
I've heard the no grief for anybody. I think that was last year. They said no grief for anybody. 2024, right? So I see that part of distressing is also having that strong mindset, in the sense that, yes, there's lots of expectations, a lot of eyeballs, but I won't let that get to me as well. So distressing is also having a strong mind. But I want to break this down even further, and I want to be more specific now.
Right.
So we'll talk about workplace
stress.
maybe we'll add traffic stress to it, because that's
environmental stress.
Environmental stress, right?
Yeah.
We can talk about stress from a relationship.
Right.
Is there national stress? Let's start with workplace stress and environmental stress, and how to deal with it. Because you go to your office, and every day you wake up and you realize you are going to work, for some people, it's stress already.
Yeah, in fact, some people are crying on their way to work.
Tuesdays, it can be the boss, it can be a colleague, it can be the work itself. Maybe people are not fulfilled. So it's a number of things. So I want you to speak to that person who is stressed at work or by work.
So, something is coming to mind, and I'm not so sure if I should say that on national TV, but I've walked into spaces where people in corporate organizations and people just, draw me to a corner and be like, I'm going through this, I'm going through that. And I'm like, oh, do you have like a setting in your office where you can walk into, and they tell them exactly what you are going through currently. And in 99% of times, I get a no. See, number one, organizations need to create a mental health culture where people can have a safe space, where they can walk into. Every organization in Nigeria need to have a therapist office, a counselor's office.
Different from HR.
Different from HR. It is not the job of an HR. Go work in an office. In fact, most of the organizations that we consult for at the Institute of Counseling, we have to even create the office in a corner of the compound, because a lot of people are even scared to go there. I don't want the HR to see me. Right? So we need to have a mental health culture.
So
it's a culture.
Stigmatization in between all of this.
Of course, of course. So it's a culture that needs to be established, right? That's number one. Then personally for you, you really need to know what is driving you. Like I said, who are you? What drives you? What motivates you? Why are you doing that job? Give yourself reasons why you are waking up and showing up. Now, and I said something earlier. It is not necessarily the stressor. It's the way you are thinking about it. You walk into an office and then you say good morning to somebody. Maybe the person is wearing this kind of hair I'm wearing, and there's something in my hair. I can't even hear you. And I didn't see you. And you're like, oh, that Dr. Tolu, I don't know, she hates me so much. I greeted her, she didn't answer. What if you choose to pick like, oh, maybe she didn't hear me, right? I know there are some people that could be a bit, in your office. But as long as you are waking up and showing up in that place, you need to find a way around it to take care of your mental health. You are not doing it for them. Do your job the way it's meant to be done, like fulfilling. Make it fulfilling for yourself. And then don't try to like, oh, because they are doing this to me, I'm not. Because if you don't even do your job very well, it's going to come back to haunt you personally. So work on the way you relate to the environment, because there are so many things that you cannot control. The ones that you are calling a strong mind is actually, it's a bit different. It's more like being self-aware enough to know that I'm in charge of my emotions. Nobody is going to dump their baggages and their negativities on me. I choose the way I'm going to react, because I cannot choose what is going on in my environment. It takes a lot for a human being to get to that point, especially for people that are coming from our environment in Nigeria, where growing up we are so traumatized. Our childhood are filled with a lot of trauma. So it's difficult for you to move to that point where you say, oh, I'm in charge of my emotion. No, there are so many things that are going to be militating against it. But to answer your question, that's the point everybody should strive to get to. You get there, you can deal with your stressors.
So help men and women. This, Canada has given you one assignment. Let me give you another one. Men, women. The way men, they're not quite outspoken when it comes. They just feel that stress is part of it. The women can express it, they talk, either spouse, husband, boyfriend, whichever. They have a way of just talking. Men will just go to that cave and just internalize. They say that's why men die early or have high blood pressure and all of that. But we live in the 21st century where things are evolving and changing. Say if you were to consult for a young man in his, say, 30s and 40, and a young woman is in her 30s and 40, what would be two things you will say to them that they have to do to manage stress?
So what you said about men, you think it's changing. It's not changing. It can't change. What we are dealing with is a form of generational trauma. And it's not like they don't need to sit you down and teach you that this is the way to do it. You pick it up from the environment. It's all around you. So as a man, you need to always try to keep it. Like, you know, I'm in charge, I can make it work and all of that. It is there, and it will always be there until we do something about our mindset, which is mental health that we are talking about. So to answer your question, for young, if you are a man or a woman and then you are dealing with stress, and that's the question, right? And I'm thinking, oh, what should I tell you to help you to come out of this? The first thing I will tell you, so there are practical things you could also do, apart from all of this psychological talk that there are practical things you could do, like mindfulness, you know, take some time to sit back and do mindfulness. There are processes of doing it. And then you can do meditation. Yoga helps a lot with stress. And then you can, like I said, locate your stressor. So for a young woman, I would just tell you, like, you need to find yourself. Find yourself, and then do all of these other self-therapy that you can do for yourself to help you with the stressors. And for a man, I would tell you to, like, you know what, forget the expectation that the society has placed on you. You need to also find yourself. Who are you? And where are you heading to? Locate your stressors and choose how you react to your situations.
There you go.
Yeah.
We have just 30 seconds left, and I need to squeeze this in.
Yeah.
When should you move away from your stressor? When should you up and leave?
Okay, so there are times that
The office, a relationship, a space. When
you
should
really, in fact, you need to get to that point where you know when to leave. In fact, while you are trying to, if an environment is toxic, you will know. While you are trying to take care of your mental health in the midst of the toxicity, you should be planning your exit route as well. So when it gets to that point, you know that there's nothing I can do about this, and this is really affecting me. You just really need to take yourself out of that space.
Thank you very much for this.
Yoga will help.
And breathing exercise, like take it in and breathe it in through your nose and out through your mouth.
And yoga it.
Fantastic conversation. We're glad we're able to have this one because it's something we overlook a lot. We've been speaking with Dr. Tolulope Okoegari, the ED Institute of Counseling in Nigeria, talking about how to manage stress and anxiety daily. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
So there you go. We hope we've been able to give you some real life hacks to managing stress. But we'll take a moment now. While you distress, we have more valuable conversation for you. So stay with us and be right back.
Welcome back. Well, I told you guys, lots of women on the show today, and for good reasons. It's a Women's Month, so we'll get started early on this one. We've been joined in the program by the CEO of TOS Group of Companies, joining us from Boston, Massachusetts, Osaso Igbenidion Oguche. Thank you so much, and good to see you, Osaso.
Good morning, Geoffrey and Kayode. Good to see you too. How are you?
Well, very well. I'm not sure what time of the day it is where you are, but thank you for staying up and being part of this conversation. As we've said, you are blazing the trail within your own space, but I want to navigate this conversation around leadership in the 21st century, especially that has to do with the multiplicity of changes we're seeing and adaptability that is required, especially what's going on in the country where you are with the protectionist posturing of President Donald Trump and the leadership of that country. So when you give us a bit of an outlook of what you see around global leadership and how we can domesticate, or domesticate is the right word now, how we can look at it locally to see how to position ourselves as a people and as a country for best advantage.
Thank you again, Geoffrey. I think leadership is changing. The demands of leaders world over are really changing. We are in a time and age where 1 + 1 no longer equals 2. The expectations of leaders are continuing to evolve, especially with the advent of social media. The world has become a global village, as you can see, and as you alluded to in your opening statement. Speaking about the leadership in the country which I'm presently in, I think a lot of people didn't expect, the emergence, or should I say the re-emergence of President Donald Trump, given the fact that He's a convicted felon, given the fact that a lot of people were really disheartened by some of the policies that he implemented in his first tenure. But we've also come to realize that there is a voice that has been emerging from the echoes of our society, which we have neglected for far too long. And they are speaking now, maybe not through social media and through the conventional means of communications, but through their votes, by going to the polls and determining that this is my outlook on life and this is my preference. And we are also going to see that worldwide. Even back home in Nigeria, we're going to see an emergence of, people, both young and old, who will start to communicate how they truly feel. And I think the wave is going to be truly unexpected, and it's going to come in one fell swoop.
Well, we look forward to it as far as it'll do good for the nation and the continent at large. But I really need to get you to speak to a very thorny issue, and it concerns women in leadership positions. We just talked about dealing with stress, right? And she talked about being a woman having its own layer of stress, right? And then you find yourself in an area where you're just very few. And I'm talking about the issue between the Senate President and Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, for good reason, right? So she's someone in a leadership position. A lot of people look up to her. And then we see the conversation just spiral down into issues around sexual harassment and the rest. So I want you to draw from your own experience now as a media person. You've been across the world doing this, and perhaps being the woman in the room, sometimes the only woman in the room, maybe a few others. And I wonder, as a woman in leadership, as a woman in the media space, having to report women and other issues, do you see this as just another day in the office for women? And perhaps, do you see a change coming soon as a result of this?
Thank you, Kaide. I can't speak specifically to Senator Natasha and Senate President Akpabio's issues. However, sexual harassment is a reality that a lot of women face, both internationally and back home in Nigeria. And the unfortunate situation that we see back home is the fact that people try to normalize it. That, oh, this is just part of the game, you just have to toughen up and get used to it. But the time of getting used to it is over. I think it's very laudable that people are coming out, speaking up, and saying that, no, this is not normal behavior. Sex for Grades documentary that came out that the BBC did was also one of the media platforms that was used to shine light on what girls are going through in the university system, in the secondary school system, where, professors, teachers who are entrusted to build the capacity and, create an environment for our leaders of tomorrow to thrive, are demanding that they give them, sex before they actually are able to pass them. So these are, situations like this, in my perspective, are a good opportunity for us to talk about the societal ills that prevent our young women and young men as well, because this also happens to men, from thriving. So it's very unfortunate, the whole debacle that's unfolding. My personal perspective is that, everyone, he or she who accuses, must prove his or her case. And everyone who is, part of the situation must submit themselves, to the Ethics and Privileges Committee, to be investigated, and let's see where that goes. But we should not trivialize issues of sexual harassment. It does a lot, to the psyche. It does a lot to the confidence, of the people involved. So it's very important that at all times we're creating a safe space, where people can participate confidently and ensure that at all times their skills are speaking more for them than anything else.
Let's talk about, still with Nigeria. Let's drag into a bit of the politics without dragging you in extensively. On record, the highest office a woman has ever attained, elected official, is the Speaker, Patricia Ite, in one of the National Assembly, one of the assemblies. No woman has ever been governor, at least elected. I'm not talking about someone impeached and they took over. No, elected governor of a state. It's just recently we have a Speaker of the Assembly in Rivers State, and that is still under contention and disputed as we speak. So it's been a challenge for women to actually rise. As we speak, out of 109 senators, the 9 senators even better. This one has just 4 senators. And there are a few times we hear them speak. So I can go on and on as to the number just getting worse in certain spaces, especially in the political space. In your view, what is the biggest limitation? Because the women have been screaming about affirmation, politicians have made promises, and it looks like, well, we're not seeing it happen. What can be done differently?
Thank you. I feel it's really unfortunate. It seems like we're regressing rather than progressing. The Senate has only 3% of women. The House of Representatives has only 5% of women. And this is even worse than the previous Senate and House of Representatives. So I think the major bone of contention here is the system. I tell people all the time that in Nigeria, we don't have necessarily a people problem. We have more of a system problem, right? And yes, it's true, the people make up the system. But in order to fix the system and in order for women to thrive, they must be able to go into the system to fix the system. And when we look at how these women even emerged, you know, there was a situation, as I said, I don't really want to go into most of this, but there was a situation where, you know, for some women, they were beat up. Their supporters, you know, were locked out of the polling station when it was a day to vote. And not a lot of people have the desire to want to participate in a system that they know will take so much energy, mentally, physically, emotionally. The last person that you interviewed, Dr. Tolu Lokpe, was talking about stress. You know, it begs the question, is it worth it? You know, is this stress that you have to go through, you know, just to lead people, and especially when you want to lead them, you know, from a place of genuine passion and desire to see change, to bring about change in their lives, you know, you start to ask yourself, you know, me being, you know, maligned in the media, you know, me being harassed physically, and, you know, me going through all of these different hardships, is it really worth it? So I think these are some of the barriers to entry for women in politics. The fact that the system is broken and it needs to be fixed. But unfortunately, it takes more women getting into this broken system to fix it.
All right, so in closing, tell us, what are you doing within your space to make sure that you enhance the voice of women especially? Because I've constantly said that maybe in the nearest future we should have one of these big parties, because that's the biggest chance women have, in my view. Throw up a woman as a flag bearer, and let's see how it goes. Men have brought us here. Let's see whether women can rescue us from where we are.
Yes. Well, for me personally, as the Chief Executive Officer of TOS Group of Companies, I personally ensure that any table I'm on, we have equal, if not more, representation of women than men. I personally do this because right now we live in an unequal society where in boardrooms, in meetings, wherever you are, the numbers are typically skewed to the advantage of men. So I take that as a personal challenge in all my businesses. Specifically at TOS Foundation, we have the executive director who's a woman, and most of our programs are focused on the empowerment of women and girls across the nation. We give startup scholarships to girls to attain quality education. We've been doing that since 2014. And to the special grace of God, our girls are thriving, they're excelling, and these truly are the leaders of today, not tomorrow, because they are achieving amazing things and, you know, just truly doing things that we know would change and transform the nation in the long run. Then we also give women startup capital to begin small to medium scale businesses. We give them financial literacy, and because we know an empowered woman is going to lead to an empowered society. So we take this work that we do at TOS Foundation very seriously, and the work that I do, across all my different other companies, through the help of my very capable general managers and managing directors, all lead to the empowerment of women and our society at large. And I believe making a conscious effort for every leader out there who's listening to empower women, to put them in leadership positions, to give them the opportunity to showcase their capacity is very important, because Nigeria cannot develop without the help of the female folks.
So for want of time, yeah, absolutely, your points are great, and we appreciate what you're doing. We wish we had more time, but that's the much we can take. We must thank you so much for coming on the program. CEO of TOS Group of Companies, Sasso Benedion Oguche. Thank you for coming on the program, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we will switch gears now and we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to look at a book and also mentor not just everyone, but literally everyone, but especially women, right here on the program. Join us again.
We're having such a great conversation behind the scenes, so let's plug you right into it. It is Women's History Month, March every year. So this is a month where we have International Women's Day, Mothering Sunday, and this is a month where men go like, come on, what's going on? But hey, it's a woman's world, right? But this morning we're talking about something very important, and that is developing women to build a better nation. And guess who we have on the show this morning? We have Madam Amina Oyagbala, who is the founder and chairperson of Whisker. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to have you on the show.
It's wonderful to be here with you this morning. It's such a surprise to see you.
That was an ambush. Looking all beautiful and radiant as always.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you. I know you have a special glow in March.
Yes, we do.
For obvious reasons. And I'm talking you.
Yes.
Your glow is all year, but March, the glow just comes up. And I want you to just speak to some of the issues we've talked about before we get right into the book, which is very interesting, the Whisker mentoring book, Developing Women to Build a Better Nation. But I want you to speak to this age-long debate, because we see women like you who have risen to the pinnacle of their careers. Now you're doing great things with Whisker, trying to raise a better generation of women. So really, are women, and I have to be very careful the way I frame this question, because when people see you, they say, well, women can do it. We have people like you doing great things. So other women do not have an excuse not to do it. But then people look at places like governance and say, we don't have enough women. So obviously something is stopping women. So how do you balance the conversation? Because obviously women can do it, looking at you, but women don't seem to be doing it, looking at those other spaces.
Well, the real question is how many women have succeeded?
Right.
How many women do we have at the very top?
So how were you able to do that?
Well, resilience, support network, mentorship, which is what this book is all about, and just trying to do our bit, not just Whisker, but all the women's organizations, all the male allies, because it's not women who can do it alone, all the he for she's, all the fantastic husbands out there providing enablement. But the real key is, institutionalization, and also change in mindset in terms of culture. Also, I think, the enabling environment, you can't really get far in any society, in any nation, without the proper governance structure, which is really around the laws, the policies, the guidelines, which are accepted and embraced by everyone. So we have a lot of these things in place, but the issue is to what extent they are being implemented, and who is championing them, who is driving them, who is advocating for them. And as I comment on this issue, I'll just give you a simple example which everybody can relate to, which is the advisory guidance that was provided by the central bank, a few years ago, over 10 years ago, under the leadership of the then CBN governor, His Royal Highness Lamido Sanusi. And he just, introduced this direction. It wasn't even a law, it was a guideline,
right,
an advisory guideline, which said that every financial institution should have 40% female representation. And that has had a dramatic impact.
In fact, it's paying off today, right?
It's paying off today, and today, because of that guideline, that simple guideline, which was implemented, you now have several women who are now CEOs of financial institutions, of banks, who have catapulted, those financial institutions, who have transformed, the balance sheets of those financial institutions, and I can begin to name them. They're performing excellently. So the issue of whether women can perform is not a discussion. The issue is, what opportunity has been provided and what enablement and what intentionality is there within institutions to ensure that that pipeline is deliberately built and the support network that women require at critical stages in their careers, especially when they get married and start having children, which is a civic duty, which which benefits all of us. It benefits society, benefits the world. What kind of support system can we put in place to ensure that women remain in the workspace and don't drop out? I wouldn't be sitting here today because I almost dropped out, which is why mentorship is so important to me.
We're going to come to, I really think, one of the chapters that has to, I think it talks about Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala,
yes,
and the need for mentoring and the role modeling. I think that's a term used. I was looking at the book yesterday before the show. I would like you to speak further on that, the role of mentoring, or mentoring as a fundamental part to raising more women. I constantly ask, when I say distinguished women like you come on the show, I always want you to explain to us what we can do to put women beyond the boardroom to political position, which is quite a powerful position. I can imagine a woman leading the country. I don't know what it will be, but I expect it to be perhaps a lot more better than what the men are doing. So I want you to speak to that particular part of the book and tie it to how we can replicate it in political office.
Okay, so I'll start by saying that it's very difficult for you to be what you cannot see. That's the first thing. Imagery is very powerful, more than words. So if you walk into a room or you walk into a space or into a meeting and you look at the storyboard on the wall and all you see there is men, already it affects your confidence as a woman to say, I don't see myself in that picture. And even in terms of your own aspiration and your own goal, you begin to reduce it. And that's where mentorship is important. And that's where also why Whisker as an organization focuses on showcasing and amplifying and celebrating the few women that have been able to get to the very top. You mentioned Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who's a lady I have a lot of respect for and really admire. And she's, by the way, also a distinguished Whisker awardee. We identified her, as an awardee because we wanted to showcase her as part of our role modeling focus. It's a key plank, a key focus area for us, role modeling, for this very reason that you've identified and articulated, so that she can inspire others. You mentioned, Kayode, in the beginning of this interview, to say, Amina, how can women believe that they can be like you? How can women believe that they can be like Okonjo-Iweala? How can women believe that they can be like Amina Mohammed, who is the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations? It's by seeing, by touching, by hearing from them, by them articulating and telling their own stories about how they got there, where they began, the difficulties and the obstacles and the challenges that they overcame, and the support system that they got, and the mentorship that they got along the way, and also their own courage and boldness to succeed and how they got there. So yes, that's why we speak about people like that. Coming to the question around mentorship, why is mentorship important? Nobody can make it in life alone. That's just a truism. Nobody makes it in life alone. So that's why mentorship is particularly important. And I think Oprah Winfrey, and I want to quote her, she said, I think mentors are important. And I think I don't think anybody makes it in the world without some form of mentorship. Nobody makes it alone. Nobody so far has made it alone. So we need to understand that you need support. We need to understand as human beings, male and female, you need guidance. The difference between women and men, and the reason why I'm focusing on the empowerment of women particularly, is because, in our history over the years, men have, there's patriarchy and there's misogyny, and men have gotten this support, and institutionalized, the support in the systems. The previous speaker talked about the importance of changing the systems. We need to change not just the institutional systems, but also the cultural system, the cultural norms that have been ingrained, not just in men, by the way, but also in women, in the way we think and in the way we think we can aspire and in terms of the goals that we think we can attain. So where mentorship comes in is the intentionality. There are different forms of mentorship, by the way. So everybody gets mentored in one form or the other, the informal mentorship. But Whisker is focused on building the leadership and the capacity of women through structured mentorship and role modeling. Why structured? Again, most of us professional women that have been in the workplace, we're juggling many balls. We're juggling many balls, and that was my own personal experience. So as I'm trying to cope with work, trying to ensure I manage my family responsibilities, which are equally, if not more important, trying to ensure that I meet the demands and obligations of society, which I have to as well, and my social obligations, it's important. If people now come to me, and a young lady approaches me and says, Amina, can you mentor me? That's an additional burden and an additional responsibility. How can I do that effectively? I can give her a word of advice on the go, but how far will that really take her? But if you have a framework and you have a structure, like the Win with Whisker mentoring model, which is properly tiered and where we provide very clear guidelines, and we also build capacity for our mentors, and we have very, very clear guidelines for our mentees in terms of how the interaction should take place and how the engagement should happen, and the do's and don'ts of mentorship, which are all contained in this book. They're all contained in this book, the Whisker Mentoring book. Then you ensure that certain boundaries are set, and the engagement is a professional one that is focused and enabling the woman to advance in her career, and hopefully you are able to accelerate her advancement and thereby catapult her career. Mentoring through the Whisker Mentoring Framework has been proven to be transformational, and we're very, very proud of many members of our alumni who now are all over the society.
Beautiful. I mean, Whisker is Women in Successful Careers. We have about a minute to wind down. It's amazing how this conversation is so interesting. But I'm interested in chapter 6 and 7, quickly. Guiding principles for mentors and guiding principles for mentees. So a lot of people have different expectations for that mentee-mentor relationship. And it's quite interesting. You put here, for the mentors, better than 1,000 days of diligent study is one day with a great mentor.
Yes.
That's on the one hand. That's why people should have mentors.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, for mentees, in an uninformed situation, and this is from Dr. Lucas Shalua, the mentee thinks that the mentor has a magic wand for success.
Yes.
However, in the real world, the mentee's attitude, determination, and self-initiative play a key role in bringing positive results. So if you can do this in 30 seconds, what should the mentee expect and what should the mentor give?
Okay, so the mentor is a labor of love. She's sharing her experiences. She's sharing the path that she has trodden. She's trying to guide you and to help you to ensure that you avoid some of perhaps the mistakes that some of us had made so that you can accelerate your career. And I can give you several examples, but because of time, I can't do that. The mentee's expectation is that she will then have access to the kind of mentors and women that she ordinarily would not have access to. They have her time. They're ready to invest in her, in terms of their intellect, in terms of their network, in terms of their resources, in terms of introducing them, in terms of the connections. But beyond that, you have a safe space, you know, a trusted individual that you can open up to and unburden yourself to say, this is the challenge that I'm facing in my organization, perhaps with my supervisor, perhaps with your peers, perhaps even with some of your subordinates. And how do you think I can resolve it? How do you think I can address it so that I can advance in my career?
So it's one reason for you to get that book. We can't have all the conversation on the show this morning, but we have to thank you so much. I know it's a big month and you have activities lined up, but thank you for what you're doing. And to all the women out there, there is a lot of support for you. We've been speaking with Amina Oyagbola, founder and chairperson, Whisker. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me on the program. And let's all be intentional about mentorship, and let's get this book in the hands of secondary school girls, of university students, of everyone. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well,
that's where we draw the curtains on the show this morning. Thank you for being a part. I'm Kayode Okikelu.
And I'm Jeffrey Zoma. Sunrise Daily is up at the top of the hour. Bye-bye.